Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today I'm here with Paige Arnof-Fenn. Hi, Paige.
Hey, Angela, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to chatting. Paige is the founder and CEO of global branding and digital marketing firm Mavens Moguls, based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Her clients include Microsoft, Virgin, the New York Times Company, Colgate, venture-backed startups, as well as nonprofit organizations. She graduated from Stanford University and Harvard Business School. Paige serves on several boards, is a popular speaker and columnist who has written for Entrepreneur and Forbes. So impressive. I'm very excited to talk with you.
Well, I'm excited to chat today too.
So one of the things that I think is just so valuable is your focus on building brands and creating a personal brand, because I think that is one of the most critical things we can do, especially in this digital world that's constantly changing, is building a brand. So what made you want to get into that industry?
So I started my marketing career in 1990 as a summer intern at Procter and Gamble.
Nice.
So I've been doing this a long time, and P&G is probably one of the most recognized brands in the world. They are
For
the
sure.
maker of a lot of products in your house that you use every day. Crest toothpaste, Tide detergent, Bounty paper towels, Charmin toilet paper. I mean, you name it, the shampoo, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Olay cosmetic, Olay cream and, facial products, Pantene shampoo, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are number one or number two in every category they compete in.
Wow.
Um, and after that, I worked at Coca-Cola, which I think is the most recognized brand in the world. Coke is sold in about 200 countries around the world. So I feel like I got educated on marketing and branding from some of the most world-class, superior brands that are out there. And I guess if you fast forward and look at what we all went through during COVID, I
Mm-hmm.
think if we learned anything during that pandemic period, if you're not a brand, you're invisible. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for my clients and my business, it was a real kick in the pants for everybody to kind of, take a breath, hit the pause button and say, like, wait a minute, how is my brand being perceived? What do
Right.
people think about it? What do they know? What do they not know? When do they think of me? Why do they think of me? So again, if we learned anything, your online presence really matters, and especially in this extreme situation where the brick and mortar place is closed, and we lived on Zoom and on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really taken on kind of a life of its own. So branding is just a core part of my business now. And, I think if you're not a brand, you're a commodity, and then you compete on price. And that's a bad place to be, because if all you can do is lower your price, it's not going to be a sustainable business.
Well, and then it becomes a race to the bottom,
You
right?
got it.
Because, everybody can do that. You don't have to be exceptional to lower your price. And then you're competing against people who may not hold the same standards, may not have the same overhead, may be cutting
You got it.
corners. And you've created a situation where you can never go lower. Somebody's always going to beat you out on price. And whether that's through, like I said, cutting corners or not doing training, we see that all the time in our industry. Security companies have long been doing that. It is a race to the bottom. And so it is our personal brand. It is our company brand that sets us apart. And we kind of live by, we have a certain set of rules, obligations, and values, and we don't compromise on them. And that is our brand. And so therefore we don't do the price thing, because that's you're exactly right. If you don't have a brand, that's what you're going to go to is price.
And as the leader of the company with the brand, your brand matters too, the company
Hmm.
brand and the personal brand.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they need to sync up and be consistent
Yes.
to tell the best story. So it's really important. And I think a lot of people, um, people will come to me and say, I'm not LeBron James, I'm not Beyonce or Taylor Swift or
Yeah.
Serena Williams. Like, I'm not really a brand, I'm not famous. I'm just selling, XYZ product or service. But I hope by the time people listen to this podcast and hear us, they'll understand everybody's a brand today. We're all walking around with these phones in our pockets that
Hmm.
are platforms for you to get your story out there. And every, social media site you're on, anytime you're blogging or tweeting, or, when you are meeting people in person, your brand really matters. So,
Yeah.
you don't have to be famous to be a brand today. If you're online, if you're meeting with people, if you're on a podcast, if you're having lunch or coffee, your brand really matters, because if someone gets introduced to you or reaches out to you over email, people are making that calculation like, is it worth my time to follow up? Who is this person? They'll
Hmm.
Google you. If they Google you or Google me, our names are probably unique enough that it's really going to be us. And
Hmm.
it's really going to be our company. So if what comes back is questionable or a lot of digital dirt, that is not going to bode well for people wanting to do business with you or wanting to take the time to grab coffee or invite you onto their podcast. So your brand really matters.
Yeah, it really does. And, people, even it doesn't matter what segment you're in, it doesn't matter what industry, they're going to look you up and decide whether or not you feel like you're trustworthy, right? So,
Absolutely.
and especially in anyone who's doing any kind of consulting or is a leader in business or on a board or, anyone applying for a job, one of the things that we do when we're looking at our potential candidates is we look up their name. I want to know what is associated with them because I need to do it as an employer because I know our clients are going to do it, right? And so it's
Exactly.
important that we know we're aligned with the right people.
And people buy products and services from people that they know, like, and trust.
Yes.
And so what comes back needs to
Hmm.
be consistent and tell a good story.
Hmm.
And, if you're one kind of person on one platform and a different kind of person on a different platform, that's going to raise a lot of questions, and that's not a good way to build a trustworthy brand.
Hmm.
But, businesses are the same. If every time you walked into a McDonald's or a Starbucks, if it looked different, if the offerings were different, if the employees treated you differently, you'd be very confused, and it wouldn't be kind of that safe space for you to go and just relax and get a coffee or a lunch or whatever. It's the same with your business. If
Hmm.
they want to know that the person that shows up, their account person, that the leadership is a good reflection on them. If they hire you, they want to be, confident that you're going to deliver on the promises that you make, and you're someone that can stand behind your word. And, if what they find out online is a lot of bad press, a lot of, questions about your integrity, or,
Hmm.
that, they're going to go on and talk to someone else. They're not going to follow up, because it's just raises, again, it raises too many questions and does not build the confidence and trust you need to associate with those products and services.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times the first impression people get of you is online, right? Especially in this Zoom culture, right? So they're going to meet you on Zoom or they're going to, look you up long before they meet you in person. So it doesn't matter how charismatic you are and how wonderful of a person and how warm your greeting is. If you have a bad online presence, it's only going to translate into a negative impression of you prior to ever even meeting you.
And, when people send you an invitation on LinkedIn, a lot of times you look and see what contacts do we have in common, just
Hmm.
to get a sense of, like, who is this person?
Right.
And, it could be someone that you know socially or professionally in common. And I do, again, background checks before you hire someone, before you go meet with someone, you can pick up the phone and say, I noticed you're also connected to Angela. I'm just
Yeah,
curious, how do you know her? What do you think of her? And if somebody says, actually, I must have met her at a networking event. I don't even remember her. I don't know her that well at all. So I can't say anything. Okay, well, that's fine. And then you'd go down the next, and maybe it's my college roommate or my next door neighbor. And I say, oh, how do you know Angela? I met her and she's kind of weird and she spams me all the time. I get these weird emails from her and she puts me on these lists that I don't sign up for. Now, when
yeah,
somebody says that, your antenna goes up and you go like, I don't know that I need to be associated with this person. But if
absolutely.
everyone you talk to goes, oh my God, she is amazing. I was blown, she has this amazing security company, and I can't even tell you, she saved me so many times
Hmm.
for all this business to her. She has never let me down, and I adore her. That's going to leave a really good impression. And
Absolutely.
your brand is what people say and how they talk about you when you're not in the room.
Hmm.
And, if you get that kind of testimonial or those kind of, people just love you and they think you're smart and great to work with and fun and funny, that leaves an amazing impression.
It sure does. Well, and it tells people what to expect, right? Because
That-
I think the other thing is I want to know if I need to be guarded when I meet somebody. I need to know if, this is somebody that I, can make jokes with, can I laugh with, are they going to expect me to be super dressed up and very proper? Are they pretty casual? And, like there's so much that goes into a personal brand and who you are. And I try to always be when I was in my 20s, I think I constantly had this feeling like I needed to portray myself a certain way, right? Like it's a lot of younger people feel like this, right? Like it's that imposter syndrome, it's the fake it till you make it mentality. And what's so funny is once you get up to our age, people are like, I am who I am, take it or leave it, right? So and so there you remove all of those walls, but you become 10 times more relatable and 10 times more sincere. And that vulnerability and that authenticity is what really allows people to connect with you because people will tell you when they met me in my 20s, I was very hard to connect with, but in my 40s, I'm easier to connect with because I am who I am, right? I don't have a need to put on a facade of being something else, and I don't have these exterior walls built up where you feel like you can't get close to me.
Yeah, I think the sooner you get comfortable in your own skin, the better.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the best parts of aging,
Yeah,
frankly. I mean, I feel
absolutely.
like you know what you're good at, you know what lane you're in, and you're not competing with everybody.
Right.
You kind of know this is what I'm great at. This is my sweet spot, and if people don't want to hire you or don't want to work with you in an interview, I always think, I'd much rather find out now than later. Like it's almost like a gift if you end up, for whatever reason, not connecting. They hire another firm, they hire another employee who they think is a better fit. It probably saved you a lot of angst and agita
Hmm.
because, maybe it was just too forced, it was a square peg in a round hole.
Hmm.
And it frees you up to find a better match and a better connection down the road. And I remember when I started my company 23 years ago, one of my very first clients, I was so excited because he signed a $10,000 a month retainer for a year contract. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a big deal, a six-figure client. I am so excited. And the guy was such a jerk. Oh my God. He was just terrible. And he hired us to do PR for him. And my PR team was doing just an amazing job getting him some terrific press locally and nationally. He was showing up in national newspapers and
Oh,
magazines.
wow.
I mean, it almost looked too easy because they are so good at what they do, and they just got him quoted and popping up everywhere as this successful entrepreneur. And the more press we got him, the bigger jerk he became. It's like he was believing all of the press, and it's like we're good at what we do, but like, it's they don't really know you, whatever, but it's great if it's getting your phone to ring and getting people on your website. And so on the third month of our 12-month agreement, um, the team was all at his office and we were just about to start the meeting. And I run a company with people all over the world, and the PR people happen to be based in New York, and I'm based in Boston, and the client was based in Boston, but the New York team was going to come for a face-to-face meeting. This is well before the Zoom world.
Yeah.
So before we started, I said to him, before we jump into the agenda, it would be great if you could just, talk to the team about your experience these first few months, that you've gotten so much A+ media. I mean, you must be overwhelmed. I'm sure you want to thank the team, and just, we can just start there and then we'll jump into the agenda. And he looked at me and he was like, thank the team. Why would I do that? I'm paying you. And I thought,
Wow.
oh my God, this guy is a bigger jerk than I gave him credit for. He's worse than
Yeah.
I imagined. And it dawned on me that, we were only 3 months into the agreement and he still hadn't paid us for the second month.
Mm.
He was already being slow to pay. And he was just not a nice guy. And I just had this epiphany sitting at the table that, like, everybody that knows this man knows he's a jerk. And they're all seeing this great press. And my biggest fear at that moment, this is like in the first 6 months of my company, was all these local businessmen would like ask him, who's doing your press? You're getting a lot of great press. And in their mind, they're thinking, I'm a jerk, but I'm not as big of a jerk as this guy. Imagine what they could do for me. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to end up building a company with a bunch of clients who I can't stand. Like,
Mhm.
that is not why I hung out my own shingle. This is not the kind of work I want to attract. And at the end of the meeting, I said to him, if you could go back to your desk and grab your checkbook and let's get caught up on payments. And we're going to finish this month. But after that, I think we're going to shake hands and part ways. I think I'm not sure we're the right team for you. And he was like taken aback. And he said, are you firing me as a client? And I thought, yeah, I guess I am. And I said, I just don't really think we're the right team. I feel like you will be better served by someone else. And it was one of the best kind of feelings when we walked out of his office with the check in hand. I felt like a weight had been lifted, and it really sent a signal to the team that I had their back. I'm not going to put up with people that treat them poorly. And it wasn't worth the money. I mean,
Yeah.
he was paying us not quickly,
Yeah.
and we were probably servicing him at a higher level than he even paid for, and he didn't appreciate it. And the
Hmm.
results were fantastic. And I thought, again, I don't want to be a magnet for all these people that just want to be in the press and they're not good people. That's not why I'm doing this. I want to work with and for people I respect and admire and enjoy and have fun with, and people that I can laugh with. And I thought, the buck stops here. And I guess it is kind of a feng shui thing. It's like when you free up the clutter, it opens up space for other things to come into your life. And we replaced the business very quickly with much better clients. And, it was like a real wake up call that, you don't have to work for everybody when it's your business and your name's on the door, whether the company is named after you or not. If you're the CEO and the president of the company, it's up to you. And if you put up with it, then you can't complain. And if you want to be different, then make better decisions.
Yeah, I've had those too, where, and it's always the ones that kind of beat you up from the beginning on price, on contract terms, on all these things that always has to be their way. And they're not taking any consideration of you and you running a business too. They're running a business, but you're also running a business.
For
And
sure.
they have a complete disregard for that part of it. Those are the ones that I find in the contract stage from the very beginning. Okay, if it's this challenging, at this point, what's going to happen when we actually work together? And so I've learned to pull away early and not even go to contract because I can already see like they don't respect our business practices. They're not going to have any regard for our payment terms. They're gonna fight us for everything. And those are not the clients that I want to work with because it's those clients that take up 80% of your time. And they're usually the ones who don't pay on time, who, complain constantly. You can never do anything right. And yeah, those are just, they're not worth it. I've walked away from quite a few of those as well.
And like you, I don't want to be a vendor. I want to be a partner. I want
Right.
I want it to be a win-win. I want your businesses to succeed and I want my team to succeed too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if we're not a good match, I'd rather know it sooner versus later. And
Yeah.
again, that wisdom kind of comes from experience and age. Those are not decisions that you make with confidence in your 20s. And when you're in your 20s, you're probably working for a bigger company. You're not a decision maker. The buck does not stop with you. And you're learning about client management skills and you're learning what you like and don't like and what you're good at and not good at. But
Yeah.
after a few decades, you've earned it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. So let's kind of circle back to this personal brand because I'm curious to know from an expert, how do you suggest if somebody is new to the industry or they just got out of college or they're switching careers, how do you start building a personal brand?
So, it starts from the inside out and you
Mm,
start small and then you grow. So think about what you want to be known for. You can actually do kind of a little market research project.
yeah.
When you talk to people and you say, what are my strengths? When you have what kind of problem, when do you think of me first? What do you think I'm good at? What do you think? And if you're starting to hear consistent themes emerge, of people that know you personally, people that know you professionally, you get a sense of kind of where you play. Like, okay, this is my turf. Uh,
Hmm.
and, if you're not liking the feedback that you hear, if some people see you as kind of a tough personality, having a bad temper, being very snarky when you think you're being funny, that's a sign too that maybe your image, your brand is not what you want it to be and not what you thought it is. So, you're planting seeds and you want those seeds to be consistent. So don't spread yourself too thin. I would say, pick the things that are really that reflect very, strongly on you. You don't need to be on every social media platform, but pick the ones that really play to your strengths.
Hmm.
If you like blogging, then by all means start a blog. But if you don't like blogging or if it's too big of a commitment, you got to understand when people set up a blog, you're telling people, I'm going to post on a regular basis, whether it's a few times a week or weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, whatever it is. And what I see happen sometimes is people set up a blog because they want to be a blogger, they want to be an influencer. And the first week they are so excited and they post 3 times and they're
Hmm.
making comments back and forth. And then the second week, they're a little busy. So they do it once, but then the third week, they're on a business trip at a conference. They don't have time. And then they come back and they're buried because they got so much work to catch up on. And then the next week, they get one more post in, but then 2 weeks later. So here's the thing, what you're telling your audience is, I'm very flaky. I know
Hmm.
I said I was going to be out here on a regular basis and I was going to be responsive, but the truth is, this is not a priority for me. And I'm not that good of a writer. And so now you're making excuses. And so again, what's the image that you're putting out there?
Right.
So if you would like the concept of blogging, but the execution's too much to handle, what you should do, and I recommend, find the blogs that are very well trafficked in your category or industry And you can chime in on any basis you want, whether you check it out every week, every other week, a few times a week, and you be the person that has a great comment whenever you make a comment. And some
Hmm.
stuff you might be right in your sweet spot. You have a very strong opinion about, and you get into a nice conversation with people on the blog. Well, the good thing about that is someone else is responsible to keep the blog fresh. And every time you comment, you put your signature at the bottom. You've got your name, associated, and you start building your reputation that way. And so every time someone sees Angela's posting, they go, God, every time she posts, she is so smart. She makes the right comments and she has a really great sense of humor. And so then maybe in a month or a year or a few years down the road, you decide blogging does make sense for you. You've built your reputation through other very popular blogs, and now people can find you and they can, connect with you. But maybe you just want to post some thought leadership on your LinkedIn profile. And
Hmm.
that's okay too. There's no right or wrong answer. You just have to decide what's right for you and what's a good reflection of kind of your strengths and your expertise. I think, again, where people kind of run amiss is they go on to X or Twitter and they want to be really snarky. And again, humor's tricky because some people may find it a little rough around the edges and not as funny as you think you are. On Facebook, they want to post all their like college reunions and they're at the beach and they're in a bikini and they're drinking.
Yep.
And so again, before someone hires you, interviews you, meets you for coffee or lunch, and they Google you and all this stuff comes up, they're thinking, who is this person? Like,
Hmm.
I'm not sure I get them. I don't get their humor. They don't seem that professional to me. So, and especially if you're young, you definitely want to like Google yourself and try and do a bit of a digital dirt cleanup, take down stuff that might have been funny when you were in high school or college. But now that you're a professional, you need to get a lot of very positive messages out there. So you want to push down all the old content and old links that maybe are not a great reflection of who you are now as a working professional. Uh,
Hmm.
and I just find that, when people when you're young, you don't think about all this stuff on the internet like kind of lasting forever, but it can't.
Hmm.
You can't always pull it down. So a
Yeah.
lot of people just try and put fresh content up there so that the newer stuff pops up first.
Absolutely. And you have to evolve. And this is where I see people get stuck and, they do the things that, well, this is just is email addresses. This is one of my pet peeves. Like when I get a resume from someone, I immediately look at what their email address is. That tells me how seriously they take themselves and the process. Because if their email is, sexy girl 123, then, at Gmail, they're not taking themselves very seriously, and therefore I should also not take them seriously.
And that is part of their brand. That
Right.
is
That's what you're
unfortunately,
putting out there. Yeah.
yeah.
So what you name yourself, including what you name your email, what you name your, if they have a Facebook profile of something that's not their name, like bunny cakes, some stupid thing, and you're like, this is not somebody I want to bring on as a serious executive or a manager in my company. Like this, you have to really look at what are you doing, even if you think, well, this is my personal page, it's nobody else's business. Yes, it is. It is your brand. It is your personal brand. And, if you want to be taken seriously, you start by taking yourself seriously and getting rid of all the childish stuff, all the garbage. So you gotta take it seriously.
And if you come off as someone who's very health conscious and,
Yeah.
very sporty and athletic and, in a professional environment, and then you go out to lunch with someone and you order like the greasiest, just,
Hmm.
and you're not dressed in a more professional way, Again, everything communicates,
Hmm.
everything. The signature on your email address, how you look, what you drive, what you wear, all of that is data. All of those are like breadcrumbs that lead into your brand. And so
Hmm.
I feel like, um, everything communicates, and
Yeah.
people think, oh, well, if you're LeBron James, if you're Beyonce, maybe, but not for me. No, I have to tell you, it is for you.
Yeah.
And, if you're the parent on the side of the soccer field and you're screaming and yelling and throwing a tantrum because your kid's not doing well on the team, and other parents are seeing that, that's going to affect your brand too. If you come off as Mr. Calm, cool, and collected at work, but you're a real jerk to your kid because he's not the best player on the team, that
Hmm.
sends a signal too.
Yeah.
And so, just be cognizant of the fact that, you need to be very conscious of all those pieces because they all tell a story, and you control your narrative. And if you want people to think about you in a certain way and talk about you and refer people, introduce you to people, they need to know that it's going to be a good reflection of them to
Hmm.
hang out with you or to make introductions of people that you trust and know. And, if you're not getting that response, you need to kind of take a look in the mirror and make sure that you clean up well.
Well, and on any kind of social media, and I'm saying this because we're specifically talking about your digital footprint when it comes to, your brand. So I see people on different forums, like again, this is not it is your Facebook and you're on a security forum, but you are trashing a company or you are, putting somebody out there making fun of them. That is a reflection of you. And this is what people
Absolutely.
need to understand. Like you putting somebody else out and calling them out, like you're doing it number one without their knowledge, which I don't defend that because I think that that's just petty. Like if you have a problem with somebody, you go to that person, you don't
Right.
blast them on social media where they're not going
Right.
to see it and can defend
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
But when you see that as an employer and as a security company owner, my first impression is I'm never hiring this person because, all it takes is for them to get upset with me about one little thing and they're going to blast me on social media and not give me a chance to defend myself. And I'm very protective of my reputation. I'm very protective of my brand. And I don't want to associate with anyone who's going to be snarky and nasty like that and fly
Exactly.
off the handle. So yeah, big, big, big no-no.
For sure. No, and I just feel like, you know, um, you you can't live in a vacuum today. Like, as you said, you see everything. In the
Mhm.
old days, you thought your Facebook friends were on Facebook and your LinkedIn contacts were on LinkedIn. But today it's, everything kind of is out there. There are
Yeah.
no secrets really.
No?
And so, if you think you can get away with something, like I said, just even going through the back channel of who we know in common, a lot of stuff's going to come out if you're, not good to your word in one part of your life. You're probably not going to be good to your word in another part of your life.
Yeah.
And
Well, and so much of our lives blend these days, right? Like I have business associates that I, previously may have only had on LinkedIn or email. That's it. And I wouldn't have let them cross into my personal world. But now more and more of them are sending you friend requests on Facebook or connecting with you on Instagram or following you on TikTok. And so there is no, I mean, like you can keep it very, 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 personal, but I also feel like people are doing that because they want to get to know you. They're trying to figure out who you are. And so for me, I just keep the same consistent message across. Like I don't post bikini pictures at the beach and I don't post, like if anything on my Facebook, the only thing non-professional I ever post are pictures of my son. That's it. But I don't rant about politics. I don't do anything that I wouldn't want my clients and my employees to see.
and
And
that's
so you have to
that's
be mindful.
Right. And that's the way you kind of need to behave today. I think everyone kind of needs to have those guardrails because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're talking politics, you're probably pissing off half the people
Mm-hmm.
might want to hire you or might want to refer business to you. And why take that risk?
Yep.
I mean, you can believe what you want to believe, you're completely entitled to it, but you don't need to kind of wear it out, online
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And I'm shocked how many people, like you said, go on these rants and say things and they feel completely justified in doing it. But
Oh
what
yeah.
the reflection on them and the risk that they could be doing it, related to you, it's just not worth it.
100% agree. So, what advice do you give to those younger people who maybe did put their pictures out, and now they're getting into the workforce? They in college they had their fraternity drinking pictures and their beach bikini pictures and they had all the fun shots of, them enjoying their college life. And now they've gotten into the workforce and they're like, "Oh, yeah, they're going to do this deep dive on my social media. How do I clean it up?" I've heard internet is forever. So, what are your suggestions?
So again, it's about posting fresh content, pulling down the old pictures, putting up the new pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, I think a lot of young people don't realize that there's a lot of reverse mentoring that can happen too. A lot of people just assume the older person mentors the younger person. But young people, they're digital native. They grew up with the phones and the computers in their arms, and they know so much that is intuitive to them that people like you and me can learn from. And so maybe they start posting things on LinkedIn, on their Facebook about, interesting things that they've learned or, little hacks that have saved time or saved money. Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they start a blog and say, if you want to make streaming easier, or you want to, there are things that they just know really well that are not intuitive to people like you and me. And when you're meeting with people for interviews or for informational interviews, um, and they are telling you about, like, I get so overwhelmed with all these platforms, or it's just, I don't even know how to use the remote in my house anymore. It's so
Mm-hmm.
confusing. Um, Send them an article or send them a link and say, we had this great discussion, and this is something I gave to my parents, and it's made all the difference in the world. Or, I've helped, I volunteer at a senior center once a month, and this is an article that, I wrote to help them. That's really powerful because when you're building your team and you're looking for the new young talent, you want people who are helpful and who can bridge that gap and that you can learn from, that they do add value. It's not a one-way street. Young people have a lot of value today because they know a lot of things that you and I can learn from. So I would say, clean up your digital dirt, Google
Mm-hmm.
yourself, see what pops up, and start posting, useful content.
Yeah.
Embrace what it is that whether it's new music, movies, what pop culture, there's a lot out there that you could share why it is that these bands are so popular that I've never even heard of them. I was
Mm-hmm.
talking to my niece the other day and she was telling me about this band she really loves. I've never even heard of it. Um, but when I was her age, I knew all the new music, but I love that because, then I can Google the band and listen, and I can see why she likes the music. But
Mm-hmm.
that keeps people more relevant, more engaged, and it's useful because marketing is about relevancy.
Yeah.
You want to be, I always tell people when they're interviewing for marketing jobs, look and see what's on the Billboard charts. What's the New York Times best-selling book right now? What movies won at the box office? Who won the Oscar for Best Picture or the Grammy for Best New Song or Best New Album? If you don't know that stuff, you need you need to know, because pop culture and influencers are so important to the marketing messages that are out there. And if you are so out of touch, um, how can you put together the right messages? But so when I see people walking down the streets and they've got their headphones or their earbuds in and their nose is in their phone and they're not paying attention to the world around them, that is not a good way to be a good marketer. I think
Hmm.
marketers always have their antennas up. I think they always know what's relevant, what's hot in fashion and music and food. Um, you don't have to like every trend, but you need to know what it is and why
Right.
it's important. So I always say, I didn't watch Game of Thrones, but I understand why people loved it.
Yeah.
You know, the Beatles can be your favorite band of all time, but that doesn't mean, you've shut down all new music. It's important, you know, do you know who's going to be the big Super Bowl advertisers this year? Like that is, why do people care about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? Why do they even care that they're dating? Well, the NFL had a big wake up call last year because they had millions more people watching their games because of Taylor Swift watching her boyfriend. And
Right.
now there are guys who have worked for the NFL for decades, who have young daughters, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, who never wanted to watch football with their dad. And now they can't get enough. They're sitting on the
Hmm.
couch before the game starts just to see what Taylor's wearing, just to see. I mean, and now they're into football.
Hmm.
And for the NFL, this is amazing because it's bringing new advertisers. Their viewership's gone up, so their brand is more relevant. It's more pricey, it's worth more because she's part of it now. So, and what she wears turns into like a massive like flood. It'll immediately get sold out online within 24 hours of a game.
Hmm.
So it's really important, again, to understand the trends. You don't have to love every trend, but you need to follow it in a professional way so you know why it's relevant, why it matters, and who cares.
Hmm. Well, and along those lines, you have to make sure that your brand is reflective of what you want to say to people. And, when you have these windfall marketing moments, right? Like this whole thing with the NFL, like the NFL has to be prepared for that. And, when you have
Absolutely.
the NFL and all of a sudden all these new eyeballs are coming to watch, you need to be prepared. Is your social media there's a lot of football players that, have been caught for abusing women and have been caught for doing this. Now you have more pressure because more women are watching and they're
Exactly.
looking at you and saying, how can you let this go on? And how can this happen? And you're going to be judged by a different set of eyes. And so again, prepare, have your brand in order, have your value system clear, and be consistent in all of your messaging of what you're going to tolerate, what you're not going to tolerate, what do you believe in, what do you not believe in, what will you stand for. All of these things are going to make a lot of difference when people start coming.
100%. Absolutely, positively. Yeah, I saw something. There's a NFL player's wife who's a fashion designer,
Hmm.
and she's never been noticed before, ever.
Right.
And just on a whim, she sent Taylor Swift a jacket that she designed that had a lot of like Travis Kelce stuff, the colors, the numbers. And she just sent her the jacket and said, I've been in and around the NFL a long time. My husband's at the end of his career. I'm a fashion designer. I just thought this would be something you'd find cute. And she doesn't even know Taylor Swift. She just sent it to her. Well, Taylor wore it to the next game. And of course, everyone went online. Who did this? Where did she find this? the woman has never, like, she went from completely in the dark to like everything she's ever designed is now sold out.
Wow.
And, again, who would have thought, right?
Right.
Taylor Swift puts on these little glitter freckles. And these 8, 9, 10-year-old girls love them. She
Hmm.
wears, and again, this is something that's like $5 online. You can't find them for like months. They were sold out. So, these trends, they pop up, and you don't have to be a Kardashian to be an influencer.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be expensive. It can be something that's cheap. It can be something that's fun. But I just think people need to, if you want to be a great marketer, you really need to pay attention, get your nose out of your phone, keep your antenna up, and pay attention to what's out there. Why? What are people doing? Why are they doing it? Why is it important? Who's benefiting?
Hmm. Hmm.
Ask yourself those basic questions, because the best marketers, the people that are really going to be able to benefit and take advantage of these trends in the market, those brands are going to thrive in the new year if they get, if they do their homework, if they get it right.
100%. Yes, I agree. So to pivot a little bit, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Boy, oh boy, I would be very nice to that person, I think.
I know.
Yeah, she was so, uh, when I was 18, I wanted to be successful. I wanted to know that I'd have this like interesting life, and, um,
Well,
you
you
know,
set yourself up well with Harvard and Stanford. That's not a bad way to start at 18.
but, I mean, my guidance counselor in high school told me I was shooting too high.
Really?
He said, you don't have enough backup schools.
Oh,
I don't think you're going to get into a lot of these schools. And I was really crestfallen. He really took
yeah.
the wind out of my sails. And my mother and my math teacher, I was a really good math student. And the two of them said to me, the guidance counselor isn't the admissions director. He doesn't know.
Correct.
He
Hmm.
doesn't know you the way we know you. My mom knew I was really, very diligent, hardworking. My math teacher knew I was really good in math. And they said, you apply anywhere you want to go. Don't listen to him. It's not up to him. And I got into Stanford, and I had my dad send the check the next day. I was so excited.
Wow.
But I think, when you're 18, you can get distracted by things that maybe aren't the most important things. You want to be
Hmm.
stylish, you want to be pretty, you want to be smart, I mean, those are all great qualities, but don't get obsessed with that. I guess what I would say is, you're going to do fine. Keep doing your homework, keep meeting great people.
Yep.
Don't be scared to fail, because I
Hmm.
you know, as I was embarking on my adulthood, I always thought, what if I screw up? What if I fail? I think the older I get, the more I realize it's not really failure. If you're learning from those early experiences, you're growing, you're getting better. Everybody kind of stumbles and falls down. It's not about that. It's about getting back up and being smarter the next time.
That's
I
exactly right.
and I think when I was young, I would say, I want to be on the list for the 30 under 30, the 40 under 40. I want to be the smartest, the fastest, the best. And I would set these like arbitrary goals for myself, to get like the accolades for having done something extraordinary uh,
Yeah.
at a really young age. And again, now I think about all the amazing people who were kind of later bloomers. They came into their own, they had a career pivot, they did something, learned from it, went another direction. And, don't set arbitrary goals for yourself. If you're not Mark Zuckerberg starting a huge company and being the president before your 30th birthday, that doesn't mean you're not successful.
That's
It
right.
just means, you're on a different path. And, my husband, when I turned 30, he gave me a book about all the people that like later in life found their calling. And it really left a great impression on me. A lot of people didn't start their kind of most successful career until their 40s, 50s, 60s.
That's
And
exactly right.
yeah. And so, there are people. I had a friend when I was little, and she used to cut open all of her like Raggedy Ann dolls in the chest and sew them back up. She wanted to be a heart surgeon.
Oh, wow.
She knew it from like the youngest age. All of her dolls always had heart surgery. Um,
Oh,
and turns out, fast forward, she is like an arrhythmia specialist and probably
wow.
one of the top heart surgeons in the country. She's amazing. And it was in her DNA from the youngest age. I don't know how she knew about heart surgery, but like I said, every doll, every Barbie, they all had marks on their chest. And that's her. And you think about Michael Dell starting Dell Computer from his college dorm room. I mean, he had a vision, he knew it.
Hmm.
There are people like that, but not everybody's like that. Like I said, I started my career on Wall Street in the 80s, and it was a crazy, wild ride. But after 2 years, I was done with that. I closed
Hmm.
that chapter. Then I opened a new chapter to do marketing, and it was corporate marketing. And then I closed that chapter and did startup marketing. And then I closed that chapter and became an entrepreneur. And who knows? I mean, it's been 23 years. It's my longest chapter, but it may be something else in a few years. So, that's fine. You're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to learn and grow and, go different directions. But I think when you're 18, you want to know, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to make my parents proud. But I think your definition of success changes as you learn and grow. And it's okay. It's supposed to. Uh,
Absolutely.
if what you're doing is to please your parents when you're your age or my age, you're not doing something right. Like you need to figure out what's right for you, not your neighbor, not your siblings. Your parents had their own careers to do what they wanted to do. This is your time. And I have friends who have gone back and decided, their parents didn't want them to go to medical school, but after a few years of working, they decided they really did want to be a doctor and they went back, took classes, applied. I have friends who took the LSAT in college so that they could apply to law school because they didn't have any better ideas of what to do after graduation. Well, they did well on the test. They joined a law firm. Then you fast forward, they're 40 years old, they're a partner, and they think, how in the hell did I end up being a lawyer? I didn't even want to be a lawyer. I just took the LSAT because it was something to do in
Hmm.
college to figure out, what do I do after graduation? And then they go and do something completely different. They start a business, they go a completely different direction. Just because you start in a career path doesn't mean you need to stay there. The
I
world
agree.
changes, you change, so I would just give my 18-year-old self a little grace and a little slack and say, you do you, pick your lane, do what makes you happy, do what's really like fun and interesting for you. And if you love it, you're going to be great at it.
Mhm. Well, and to circle that back to personal branding, you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want, right? So just because my previous career was in the event world and now it's in the security world and I merged the two together and you can be the same person in different career paths. You can hold the same values, you can hold the same, thoughts about yourself and the same reputation. You still bring that level of trust into the next thing that you do, but that personal brand is the consistency. So,
Exactly.
your consistency with your values and who you are and what you stand for, that will translate from career to career. And that's why your personal brand is so important. And it can be completely outside of your professional brand. But again, it's that personal brand that you have to make sure is consistent no matter what you're doing.
Right. Your core values don't
Hmm.
change. And
Hmm.
like you and me, all the roads of my career and life converged into this chapter. And some of my best clients and best referrals are coming from people that knew me in school, knew me in banking, knew me in corporate, knew me in startups. And like you said, I'm still me inside. They
Yeah.
knew I would work hard. They knew I would be relevant and to be up to date and be fun to work with and have a great work ethic and all of that. So that is exactly correct. Like, and if you look at people like Madonna or Oprah, look at how their careers have evolved and how much
Mm.
they've changed. If you
Hmm.
know, when Madonna came out, when I was in college and high school in the 80s, I mean, she had like tons of makeup. She wore like leather and her hair was like bleach blonde. And
Yes.
and she evolved with each kind of decade. Then she got married, she had kids, she got into yoga and Kabbalah and, you know, softened her look and got to be more kind of um, softer look, just, and now she's like, in her mid 60s and looking amazing and has these grown children. And, and look at Oprah. She started as like, an
TV
anchor,
reporter. Hmm.
yeah, an anchor on the news in Chicago. Or no, I don't even know if she started in Chicago, but
Baltimore, I think.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
And then she went from there to her talk show. And her talk show started out being kind of sensational to get the ratings. And she decided that's not the show she wanted to do. And then she made it more about kindness and doing good and telling good stories. And then she started her book club and people, loved her. And then, and you look at how she morphed and then the show went off the air. She started her network. She was in movies. She's become a producer. She had a production company. And you look at how her brand has evolved, but
Hmm.
all those core values and all those pieces were threads throughout her life and career. And people that knew her in Baltimore and Chicago are still part of her world now that she's in California. And
Hmm.
so, you know, people morph and evolve their personal brands all the time. And it's quite possible, but it's not whiplash. You're
Yeah.
carrying them along with you. And you again, back to that consistency that we talked about at the very beginning. There are consistent themes and threads that, tell people this is someone who I trust, I like, I feel comfortable referring. It's a good reflection of me. I still want to be part of their world. Whatever they do next, I'm going with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen to that. Well, this has been really, really enjoyable, Paige. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a ton from you.
Well, you were so easy to talk to. This has been a blast. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Well, I just have one more question for you. What do you wish more people knew?
Wow. I guess I wish more people knew that um, it's really good to have a growth mindset. Um, if you win, I don't have to lose. We can
Yeah.
both win. And I wish people were of the mindset that like, don't worry about dividing up all the pies. Let's learn how to make more pies so that more
Hmm.
of us can eat and more of us can, um, you know, build more together. And I
Yes.
think, when you're young, I think it's you're more competitive with the outside world and you don't need to compete for everything. I think um, it's okay to push yourself and to be have a competitive spirit, but compete internally, kind of share externally. Because I think when you give more, you get more. In
Hmm.
my experience, the more you give, the more you get. And
Hmm.
I just feel like, I mean, look at what's going on in California this week. People are coming up with these incredibly heartfelt, generous acts, and everyone's going to benefit from that. The world will get better and heal. the more people have that growth mindset. So
Yeah.
I guess I just wish people could bake more pies.
Yes, yes. I love that. I love that idea and that analogy. So, well, thank you again, Paige. This has been wonderful. And I know they can find you on prettypowerfulpodcast.com, but where else can they find you?
My website, mavensandmoguls.com, and LinkedIn is my platform of choice,
Okay,
Paige Arnof-Fenn. But thanks
awesome.
again. This has been a great conversation.
And thank you for being here. I appreciate all of your great insight today. So, wishing you incredible success in this journey or whatever the pivot may be after. So,
You
well, thank
too.
you guys. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time, and until then, step into your own power.